David, some big numbers that stood out to me, that mobile revenue is now 80% of total revenue, and we're looking at over $2 billion of free cash flow for Facebook.
Yeah, well, Zuckerberg says our business is thriving right at the top of the press release. That is practically an understatement. The fact that mobile, it's really a mobile story. And if you look at 80% of their revenues are coming from mobile ads, up from 69% a year ago, that's amazing. If, 1.44 billion of their monthly active users are mobile, that's almost all. The total is 1.59. That's impressive, but that's only growing 12%. The mobile thing grew 21% users globally. This is a company that when it went public, people said they don't get mobile. They have so completely gotten it. They are dominating. They're taking share in U.S. mobile advertising away from Google steadily, and it's just an astonishing mobile story.
And do you see any headroom, or do you see any ceiling for them, or do they have a long runway to go in this front?
Well, if you've heard me over the years, I am not very pessimistic about Facebook's opportunity long-term globally. In the U.S., they're losing users to Instagram among young people, but they own Instagram. Big whoop. Their real opportunity is in the developing world, which is why their free basics thing is so important to them. And frankly, there's a lot of controversy around that, but they will continue growing globally for a long time to come.
I should point out that Facebook says that video and Instagram did make strong contribution in the fourth quarter, but they were not breaking out Instagram revenues. That was what some analysts were looking for. Would they do that, and how much would it be?
Yeah, it's kind of curious that they've neglected or refrained from doing that so far. Another thing that's worth noting as we go through these tech company earnings, Corey Johnson, is that Apple mentioned China a couple of times in its earnings report, and of course we got the comment from the CFO that there was some weakness, some softness in China, especially in Hong Kong. Facebook has no exposure to China, does it?
No exposure to China, so I guess they don't have that as a weak point to worry about. And I think that really David's right. The mobile thing is such a big deal. If you look at mobile revenues on a year-over-year basis, it's one of the things I pull out in my model here. It's up 82% year-over-year. So not only is it a growing business of growing importance to Facebook, if you just think about it as a separate business, which of course it's not really, but I'm sure in some way they look at it that way, an 82% rise on a $2.5 billion business year over year is a fantastic thing, and it shows you sort of how they've been able to sort of capture that tailwind of the move to mobile with some successful mobile apps. And let's not forget, as you mentioned, Instagram and Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. Now, right now, Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp aren't necessarily contributing in a direct way to revenues, although they are keeping people within this Facebook universe. Facebook continues to garner data from people as they use Messenger and other things, and so that feeds big Facebook, if you will. But the numbers that we see from these guys are very impressive, not just from a revenue standpoint, right? New tech, unicorn technology math, but actual from a free cash flow standpoint. $6 billion in free cash flow in the last 12 months. Really fantastic numbers from Facebook.
David, the headline here is Facebook says it's still in a, quote, experimentation year for messaging apps. In much of the world, messaging apps are the platform that are the internet. How important is it for Facebook to really crack these?
Well, they essentially own that business in every place except China. So, with WhatsApp and Messenger, they are the dominant colossus. Revenue's not really part of it, but it hasn't been an effort of theirs up to now. I think for them, it's something like, you could look at it a little bit as a Trojan horse, where they get into the mindset of the user that way, and they can slowly wean them towards Facebook, which they haven't actually tried to do. But if you look at some of the things with Messenger, where now you can order an Uber through Messenger, they're starting to turn those things into more like full-service apps to do a lot more than simply communicating between people.
David, what would you say is the biggest risk then going forward for a company like Facebook if it's doing so well on mobile and it doesn't have to worry about the China headwinds?
There's two risks, and China's one of them. They have to get into China. I mean, this is something that Zuckerberg absolutely believes. WeChat, owned by Tencent, is probably the most important competitor he faces globally. And if he can't get in China, then WeChat has an advantage as they extend globally, which I think they will do. The other is the privacy issue, which I think, in the developed countries, we're already talking about it a lot. It's not an issue at all at the Indonesia, South Africa kinds of countries, developing countries where Facebook is so huge. But this is a real potential weak point for them over time. But it's a very long-term risk on a financial basis. Yet, they've got to do something to reassure their users about how they treat their personal data, because it's really concerning more and more people, especially in Europe, as you've seen.